Starting from zero in coding is like learning a new language, one that allows you to communicate with computers and create powerful applications, websites, games, and much more. In today's world, coding is no longer a skills reserved for tech professionals. It's a gateway to endless opportunities across industries. Whether you want to become a software developer, break into data science, or simply automate tasks in your current job, coding opens up a world of creativity and problem solving. The beauty of starting from zero is that you don't need prior technical experience. You just need to have curiosity, a willingness to learn, and drive into practice. Modern tools, beginner-friendly languages, and vast online resources have made learning to code more accessible than ever. You can go from writing your first line of code to building functional projects within weeks, all while nurturing critical thinking and logic skills that may apply to much more than just technology. Learning a code is a journey, but once you take it up your own pace with a growing community of learners and experts ready to support you, in the following steps, we will explore how to dive into coding from the ground up, break down complex concepts into manageable parts, and guide you in building practical real-world projects that will fuel your progression from novice to skilled coder. Get ready to unlock a powerful toolkit that will allow you to shape in the digital world around you. The video is going to be a little larger. Please watch till end. Before we go into the details, let's gather some information. Let's try to understand who all can be the aspirants wanting to start coding. I have broadly categorized the aspirants who want to start coding into 5 different categories. And anybody, or you, if you are an aspirant and watching this video, you may be falling in that any of the 5 categories. The first category is if are you a student thinking of coding career, so you already be doing your graduation or post-graduation or some other course, and you are somewhere thinking of switch to your career or build your career into coding. If you are a working professional, you are already working in some other organization in different domain, maybe you are a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer, or you can be working in government organization, and you wish that you want to switch your career to coding. If you are a business owner, you are owning your own business and you think that coding can be helpful for you, which can help you in many ways, and you want to learn coding for that purpose. If you are somebody who love coding and want to do coding for just fun, and you have heard from your friends and years that coding is a fun, and then you want to learn coding for fun. Or if you are somebody who wants to learn coding for freelancing, so it's a kind of work that you get from other persons against which you are paid some money. So this thing, if you are trying to do and learn coding for that, so I have staged the activity into 10 steps. So what you require is to follow 10 steps. So if you are done with this 10-step process, you are done and you would be able to learn coding from zero. So the first step is understanding the basic of how coding works. So before stepping into any line of business, you need to understand how this works. So I will explain this as well. The second step is build understanding on the basic logic flows. Third is pick a programming language. Fourth is learn fundamentals of the language. And the fifth is build fundamentals, logic building and problem solving. Sixth is write code every day. Seventh is build a small project. Eighth is join the community. Ninth is learn version control. And the 10th is move to the complex and real-time projects. So we have seen that these all 10 steps are one by one. If followed, you would be able to start your coding from zero, and then you really can be master of that coding language or programming language. The first is understanding the basics of how coding works. Before we go to understand this technically, let me take you and discuss with you an example. Let's say you have a housewife help at home, a maid who is working at your home. She can speak some other language. Let's say she speaks English, and then you don't know English. So what happens? You don't know English, but she only speaks English, and you are going to instruct her to prepare a cup of tea, right? So how will this work? The process will work. Fortunately, you have one person in your family who knows your language and English both, right? So what will happen? You will write the instructions. So what could be the instruction? Number one, take some water in a kettle, switch on the burner gas stove and put that kettle on the gas stove, wait for and put some tea leaves into it, and likewise every step that you will write in your language, right? And that sheet of paper, you can hand it over to the person who knows English as well as your language. So what will that person do? The person will read the instructions one by one in English. So he will read, since you have written in a different language, so he will read in your language and he'll speak out to English, so that the maid who understands English will able to understand that, and then she will start performing the activities. Likewise, consider computer as your maid, and you really don't know computer's language, because the computers internally, if you try to understand, they actually internally understands only binaries, zeros and ones. So if you don't write your program in zeros and ones, so you write your program in English. So yes, again I have spoken a new word called program. So the program is nothing. Taking the example of this maid, so you wrote your instructions, right, on a sheet of paper. So instructions, your paper was the collection of instructions, 1 2 3 4 5, like that. Likewise, a program is nothing but a set of instructions. So you see this in front of you. This is a sample program written in language C. C is a programming language, so it's written in programming language C, and the objective of this program is to calculate the simple interest. Okay, so I mean, if you are having a little bit mathematics background, so you know how to calculate simple interest. Okay, this program has been written in C, and it would be given to computer to perform this activity. Likewise, the maid, you wrote the instruction in your language, and then you give to the person, this is the person, and you gave that instruction to this person to hand it over to maid. Likewise, you write your program and then you give it to compiler, and compiler does what? It changes your program into machines unstable programs, right? Machine unstable instructions. So compiler is playing the role of the middleman who is there in the house, who takes your instruction, reads into English, so that maid understand, and maid starts preparing tea. So this is the simplest example wherein you are trying to ask computer to do a small work of calculating simple interest, which you wrote in some language, and that has been converted by this compiler into machine code. And here is the way that is. So you are typing down, so it is asking for enter the principal amount. You wrote enter the principal amount, and then it is asking enter the rate, and then enter the time, and all three once you enter, then it calculated the simple interest here. So you may be telling that, boss, this is very small thing, and I myself can calculate simple interest on a paper, using my pencil and paper. On my paper I can calculate it. But think of a scenario wherein you want to do this for 100 times, 1000 times, 5000 times. So what will happen? Every time I will give you some values, then you have to calculate and think of the scenario if it is to be done for, let's say, 10,000 times. So you have to do the same thing for 10,000 times, right? So this is the beauty, like you have written the instructions, and so it becomes a program, and it can be given to computer. So as many times as you want, you would be able to execute this, and you will be able to see the answers there, right? So makes sense, like, so this basic thing you have to build the understanding of basic of how coding works is clear now. So this is the simplest example. You can have very complex examples. So these days you see anything that you want to book your flight ticket, so you go to any online website which allows you to book your ticket. So there also these all programs written, right? You have something called health tracker in your mobile, wherein you walk, then it tracks the steps. So there is another program written for that. So there are very real-time use cases. So whatever you think around you, everything is done and being taken care of and being done by the programs, and computers are performing those activities. Your mobile itself is a computer these days, which does lots of things for you. Now, this particular step 1, understand the basics of how coding works, is pretty much clear to you. I understand. Moving to the next is build your understanding of basic logic flow. So logic, again, the logic comes is, let's say if you have been asked to prepare tea for somebody, what logic is there involved in this? The logic is that you have to think beforehand. It's not like you have switched on the gas burner and then thinking what to do next. You have to prepare yourself, right? You have to have a kettle with you, have to have water, milk, sugar, if you want to use sugar, tea leaves and other stuff, right? So this is how you have to build your logic. You can take some example. Let's say I'm giving you a simple example wherein I'm asking to check a valid email ID or not, if this email ID is valid or not. So what are the things coming? You just start imagining. So normally an email ID has two parts, the first part and the second part. First part before the @ sign, and the second part after the @ sign. And you see that if any email ID doesn't have any @ sign, so that email ID is not correct email ID, right? So this @ sign is very mandatory, right? So the first thing, you start reading these email ID one by one in every characters. Then you think if this email ID has an @ sign or not. If this does not have an @ sign, then you declare that it is invalid email ID. Make sense? What else that you can think? You can think that there could be only one @ sign. You cannot have multiple @ sign in an email ID, right? Think of any email ID where only one @ sign should be there. It must be only one, right? So second thought can be check if the email ID email contains characters before and after. This is again a logic. This @sign, before the @ sign there should be some characters, and after this @sign there should be some characters, right? So this is a second rule, right? What can be the third rule? @sign should not have immediate dot. So you cannot have immediate dot at like xyz.gmail.com. It can't be, right? So you need to have some letters. So should contain at least one dot should be there because it is about domain. So you cannot have xyz.gmail. You have to write .com, .co, .in, .de, whatever, like domain. You have to have this, right? So what you have seen is with a simple example. Now I think you have started building logical thoughts in your mind that if a program is given to me or if a work has been given to me, how can I start working on that? Make sense? In real-time scenarios, in like we work for organizations and we get tasks or we need to write code for the application. So any task comes like this only, right? So what you require is to think about it and one by one. So if you start thinking or start building your thoughts like this, your second step is covered. And what is the second step? Build understanding on basic logic flows. Make sense? Going for the third one, pick a programming language. This is very important. So there are many programming languages. So for you, what is a programming language? So you have seen in the first example written, and this program was written in language C. Okay. So likewise, there are many programming languages. So you actually can pick one of the programming languages for you to select and start your coding journey. So if you are thinking of which language to start, the one thing that starting any language and working on that is hardly some different, but there are many languages used for multiple purposes. There are specialized languages. For example, if you see in the screen, there are very less languages used for game development, right? For very less languages for system level programming, like antivirus, like drivers. So you have to decide like what language should I use. So see, the web development is very common, or let's say general purpose programming language is very common. So you can pick any language. So this screenshot talks about all the languages and in which the areas they can be used. You can take a snap of it for you. And the second thing, we have some consideration while selecting the programming language. What is your career goal? What is your project goal? I mean, what kind of work that you are wanted to do? What kind of career is you are thinking? Are you very much passionate about games? So if you want to do game development, then you can select a programming language which can help you developing game. What is your learning style is very much optional, but then you can think of what is your learning style and community and resources and demand. So these all things can be actually thought of. And again, I mean, there is a detailed video, the first video in this playlist that you can refer, or I can give you the video link in I button, which you can refer for that and getting into this all programming details. So the third step is pick a programming language. Looks clear to you now. Moving to the next is learn the fundamentals of language. So the fundamentals like basic input, output, variables, loops, these things are new to you right now, but not to worry. Once you will start learning the language, these things are very much common among all the language. That's why I have brought this for your information. Let's say this program of finding greater of two numbers has been written in C language. So just see that these are variable creations, and here I'm comparing that number 1 is greater than or equal to number 2. So I'm printing that first number is equal to or greater, otherwise second. And if the same thing has been written in C++, let's say that everything's same, that variable creation and the comparison, everything is same, only the standard and output are different. If same thing has been written in Java program, in Java language, you see that variable declaration and everything same, only that input output is different. And the same thing has been written in, let's say, Python. You see that variable it is a little easier than the earlier ones, and then again the comparison is almost the same as we have seen in C, C++, in Java. And this is the same program that has been written in C#, which is the mostly used language on .NET. So you see that same has been written in the same way as C, C++, Java, and Python. So what we learned from these examples, we learned is that whatever language that you start, the basics are going to be really same among all. right? So the basics will be same, and then based on that basics, then the language will take it to its advancement in its own area. Some languages are specialized for something. For example, let's say some languages are specialized for writing system programmings, like, so then they will take you to, some are object oriented programming languages, some are basic purpose languages. But the basic thing which I have told, that build a basic learning of language, is almost the same. So step 5 is build the fundamental logic in problem solving. So this is what this step. In this step, what you need to do is you have to think about different programs. So you think about different programs wherein problem statements, and once you get the problem statement, you start thinking the solution of that problem statement. You can take help of our portal, our Blogspot portal, wherein we have a list of programs written in terms of assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, and likewise there are many assignments that you can see there, and you can actually start picking up the question from their assignment step by step, 1, 2, 3, like that, and you start doing those questions in your programming language which you have opted in last step. And I am sure that at the end of finishing that assignment list and series, you would be able to build your 100% knowledge and complex knowledge and in-depth knowledge in that language, and you would be able to proceed for your next steps. Make sense? The next is write code every day. So you have to practice every day. You have to make a practice in your learning practice, that you have a daily to-do list. So you can make a to-do list by giving some time every day. So take an example, start doing, and I'm sure that once you start doing programs and you see your programs running, it gives another kind of pleasure, and you will never forget, and you will every day definitely will get into the practice. And then you start by simple case studies, anything that you see that I can write program for this, I can write program for that. So likewise you can do this. So this is what write code every day. And the step 7 is build a small project. So you can build small projects. You can create a calculator, like this application. I will show you. This application is for giving you the time. So let's say I want to show this application. So this is the application that I have created, which will tell you the time. So once you click the button, you see that this shows the time and date right now. So likewise, you can create a small utilities. So you have seen that we have created one such program, one such application. I showed you. We can create SIP calculator, basic games, portfolio page. You can create like PMI calculator. So these examples, and there are many and many. Once you get in sync, then I will keep you providing many use cases which you can actually do. So this is what you said as a step number 7, build a small project. Now talking to step number 8, that is join a coding community. So you have my YouTube channel, you can subscribe to this. You can refer to my Blogspot, wherein I post many questions which I already shown in the last step. You can refer to many other websites like W3 Schools, Geeks for Geeks, Reddit's programming subreddits, and Stack Overflow. And overall, internet has full of all information. The only thing is that you have to filter the correct information and get into that, right? The next step is learn version control. So version control is what it is a kind of tool which helps you control the version. So if you go into practical examples, you start working in industry. So you are not only the person working on that project. There are many, let's say person A, B, C, D. So many persons are working at the same time. So think of a scenario wherein you are working on a file. At the same time, this guy also has to work on that file. And you both are working, so there could be a possibility that you have done some change which is not reflected to him, or if he has done change, then it is not reflected to you. So that's why, in order to provide a consolidated file experience to everybody, and let's say this guy has done some changes and the changes has been checked in. If I'm saying checked in, that changes has been changed and saved, then they should be available to all. So this kind of facilities are provided by version control. So there are many version control examples: GitHub, TFS, that is Team Foundation Server, Apache Subversion, IBM ClearCase, Azure DevOps, SVN, and many more. So you have to learn one of them. And what happens once you learn one of them, it would be easier for you to get into the industry. And once you get into the industry, you already know this. Although it depends on that particular organization in which you start working, what kind of version control are they using. Many are using TFS. Nowadays, many are using Azure DevOps. So, but more or less, the concept remains the same. So that's where concept of version control comes in, and you should be at least aware of the version control stuff. I will give you a separate and dedicated video on version control, but just to give you a glimpse of it is important. One such important thing is that you should be knowing version control stuff. And last is that move to complex and real-time projects topics. So once you are done with this and then you have got awareness of everything, it's time for you to move to your projects. So if you are a business owner, start doing your own website, or start preparing your own tool, or automate your business. If you are a student, you start getting some real-time projects. I will help you getting on those, or you can actually opt whatever you want to do. Any real-time, you can pick any case from real-time life and you can start doing on that. And if you are freelancing, then you can announce that you can take now projects and you can do projects on that. I am pretty much sure that the points which I have discussed to start coding from zero are pretty much clear to you. I'm also sure that you are going to get benefited out of these points. Share your feedback with me. If you have any query, any questions, write over the comment or write over my email. See you in the next video. Bye bye.